So I was telling you why this custom and the usage has been given override effect over a statutory provision in 1955 when this Hindu Marriage Act was enacted and passed by the Parliament. So there are five requisites of a valid Hindu marriage. You know it well. Number one is that the person is not party to the marriage, should not have husband or the wife, must be capable of giving valid consent, so spouse should be singular, consent, he or she must be capable of giving consent, age, bridegroom 21 and bride 18 years, and the restriction of the prohibited degrees and the Sapinda relationship. Now, before going into the effects of failure to comply with these all five essential requirements or the results of non-compliance of these five requirements, we will just finish the ceremonies of a Hindu marriage. As we all are Hindus and know it well, and if we see the section 7 of the Hindu Marriage Act, rites and ceremonies, a Hindu marriage may be solemnized in accordance with the customary rites and ceremonies of the either party thereto. So, marriage should be solemnized according to ceremonies or the rituals customary. Rites and ceremonies include Saptapadi, that is taking 7 steps by bridegroom and bride jointly before the sacred fire. The marriage becomes complete, binding when the 7th step is taken. So for Hindus, you can say the essential ceremony of a Hindu marriage is Saptapadi. Husband and wife taking 7 rounds of the fire before the sacred fire. And you also know it and read it so many times. Hindu marriage is a sacrament, not a contract as in Muslim law. In Muslim law, a Muslim marriage is treated as a contractual obligation, or the status is of a contract. But here is of sacrament, and it is said क्या है 7 जन्मों का बंधन. It is not a Saptapadi. It is said it is the binding. It is having the binding or bondage of the 7 jan of the parties. So husband and wife one time bonded in a relationship are treated as to have this relationship in 7 lifetimes. So if it is believed 7 जन्म तो हिंदू के तय ही हैं कि माना भी होना है, ये कम बड़ी गारंटी नहीं है हिंदू धर्म शास्त्रों के अनुसार. अब ये 7वां है कि पहला है या बीच का है, ये भगवान जाने. लेकिन हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ एक दूसरे के लिए भी जन्म लेते हैं और एक दूसरे से हिसाब भी चुकता करते हैं, प्यार मोहब्बत का भी और दुश्मनी का भी। Section 8 talks of the registration of the Hindu marriage. Now it has become the mandatory registration of the marriage of the Hindus. It is a judgment of Srimati Seema versus Ashwini Kumar, 2007 Supreme Court. In this case law, the Supreme Court said it is mandatory for the compulsory registration of a marriage between two Hindus till so far. Before passing of this decision, it was optionally registrable, but I don't think that some amendment has been made in the Registration Act. But the Registration Act still treats it as optionally. I don't think it is optionally registrable also. So Registration Act deals it in neither way. Neither treats it as an optionally registrable document nor compulsory registrable. So silence of the Registration Act still speaks a lot, even after passing this Honorable Supreme Court's judgment in Seema's case. What will be the effect of this registration? It is very important, and you as a judge or as an advocate will certainly come across with some family marriage disputes. So if you see the clause 4 of section 8, the Hindu marriage register shall at all reasonable time be open for the inspection, shall be admissible as evidence of the statement therein contained, and certified extracts therefrom shall on application. So the entries made in the registration register will be admissible in evidence. Admissible in evidence of what? Evidence, admissible in evidence, the extracts of the entry. Extracts of the entry means who was bride, who was bridegroom, when they married, where they married, when they get it registered. So all the details of the marriage. But remember, mere marriage certificate is not a proof, conclusive proof of the marriage. It can be a prima facie proof of the marriage, but not a conclusive proof of the marriage. If two persons, without really solemnizing a marriage, go to the registrar office and poses themselves as husband and wife and register a marriage, factum of marriage. Though this factum of marriage is registered, but it is not a conclusive proof. It may be a prima facie proof also. How a marriage can be proved? The another legal question is posed. Because marriage of a person may in so many matters be required to be proved. Suppose, as per the first condition of the marriage, where no spouse should have the other spouse living to the marriage before, at the time of marriage. How the other person, other party will prove the factum of marriage, that he was married? Or in case of bigamy, where after solemnizing the marriage, again party to the marriage solemnizes with third one. So as per section 7, the Saptapadi has to be proved. They took 7 steps before the fire. If the husband and wife or the alleged husband and wife exchange the garland in the temple, is no marriage in the eyes of law, unless the factum of Saptapadi is proved. So in case of bigamy, it is very difficult to prove the marriage. It is very easy to allege that the husband has remarried with such and such woman. But how the party can prove it? It is a very difficult task in law in proving the second marriage of the husband or the wife. We will come on that issue also. So here it is enough to note it down what is the value of the registration of the factum of marriage. The factum of marriage means the fact of solemnization of marriage. It is a limited scope. And when we will move ahead and come to the real issues, you will find the rules of evidence, the burden of proving a fact, and opportunity of refuting if some presumption has arisen, or contradicting the evidence which one party has led. So we will cover it. It is with the Evidence Act, the appreciation of the evidence, how facts are to be proved, and what will be the procedure of proving a fact, and what will be the net result if somebody fails to prove or not fails to prove, or refute or not to refute, what are the presumptions. Which is procedural aspect, we will cover it in Evidence Act. So here it is suffice to note the value of the registration of the marriage. You may also come across with the so many marriages solemnized in the Arya Samaj Mandir and a certificate issued by the Arya Samaj Mandir. They also express that marriage was solemnized as per the Hindu rites and ceremonies, and Saptapadi was taken by both husband and wife. So this certificate is also not a conclusive proof of the marriage. It may have only a prima facie evidence that the parties have solemnized the marriage. Now again question would be, upon whom this burden lies of proving this marriage. Again this ball goes in the other court of the procedural aspect, how this factum of the marriage will be proved. So whether it be a certificate of the sub-registrar or the registrar of the marriage, or it is a certificate of a Arya Samaj Mandir or some other temple, it is not a conclusive proof of the marriage. If the party is denying marriage never took place, and certificate says the marriage took place, so we will again it's a procedural aspect. We will take it in another lecture, or we are not leaving it for the Evidence Act. Tomorrow's session we will cover it. the procedural aspect of proving the factum of the marriage of a husband and wife. So I think for today's discussion it is enough. We will send you some questions regarding this Sabinda relationship and the probability degrees relationship, and we'll take up tomorrow the proving of factum of marriage.